WMEL.
That's the sound of the 1951 Ford Victoria Hot Rod, fully restored and donated from the private collection of A.J. Hires. It's the 2017 Win the Classic Ford Car Raffle to support Helping Seniors of Brevard. You have to see this car. I'm Kerry Fink, and I'm inviting you to visit helpingseniors.brevard.org for full information on this exciting car raffle. That's helpingseniors.brevard.org. Stay tuned for more info on the Talk to Me radio network. We're glad that WMEL cares about the space and Treasure Coast.
The views expressed on the following program are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and are not necessarily those of WMEL staff, management, or advertisers.
This is Joe Steckler, folks, your host for Helping Seniors, the radio arm of Helping Seniors of Brevard County. Our organization is designed to inform, educate, and help connect seniors and those that care for seniors with the resources in Brevard County that will help them age with a little bit of dignity. And we've been promoting these kinds of programs since 1994. That's a long time, folks, to be on the air and to promote something and to fight to continue to believe strongly that we can improve a system that sometimes seems awfully broke. Not broken, to use the right terminology. But like I said, our purpose is to inform and to educate and help people. And our information specialist, Kay Kaiser, can be reached at 321-473-7770, 473-7770. And Kay can help you get directed to the right source for help. And, one of the sad parts about when you have an information program system is that the person that answers the phone, that takes your call, has got to be more than just a phone answerer. They've got to be the type of person that can perceive what your real problem might be in making a call in the first place. And so often we find that when somebody calls to ask for help, that what they're calling about is not what they really need. It's in the course of the discussion, we find out other things that they might need that could really help them more, and they might just be totally misinformed about the type of help they can receive, what they can get, and so many times most of these problems are not really problems at all. They can be resolved if you just have somebody that will listen. Not hear you, but listen and understand what it is that you're calling about. So that's what we try to do. We always make sure that we take that phone call, and if we're on the phone, you'll get your message will be recorded on one of our computers. It goes on to 3 different computers, so we do have a record of who calls us. Today, my panelists are Teresa Russell from Department of Children and Families, and she is here in the studio along with Kerry Fink, and Kerry is the director for the Helping Seniors program. And we're going to talk today about elder abuse, but in particular, we're going to talk about World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, and I'll let Teresa talk about that, but I think it's something that, not something I think, something I know we need to know more about, because elder abuse is probably one of the most covered up forms of abuse that exist in our country today. And I'll ask Teresa to talk a little bit more about that, because she does a lot of that through her work with the Department of Children and Families. Teresa, how about talking to us a little bit about your background and what World Elder Abuse Awareness Day is?
Well, my background is I'm actually a native Floridian. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida, and have been working in and out of state work. And working, originally I started with children and then switched over and began working with adults, and just kind of got really involved in seeing the need for adults. World Elder Abuse Awareness Day officially began in 2006, was the first one held at the UN in New York. And it's been held every year since then on June 15th. And about 8 years ago, I was working as the community liaison with Adult Protective Services and for the family safety part of Department of Children and Services. And I had one of my coworkers challenge me and said, "Hey, World Elder Abuse Day is in a couple weeks. What are you going to do about that? I didn't know anything about it, so I had to get on the internet and find out what World Elder Abuse Awareness Day was. And I thought about it for a bit. And working for the Department of Children and Families, we are a reactive agency. We don't find out about abuse and neglect until it's occurred. So I started thinking about, well, it's an awareness day. To be aware is to help prevent. So what kind of things can you do to prevent people from being abused, neglected, and exploited? So I've my focus on World Elder Abuse Awareness Day and the services and vendors that we invite to participate in the festival with us are services to keep people healthy, happy, safe, and independent in their homes for as long as possible. Finding out about preventative things we prepare our children for the first day of school. We prepare to go to college. We prepare for our first job. Few people prepare for those golden years other than to say, okay, we'll prepare for retirement and it's all about money. Will we have the money to do that or Social Security? There's a lot more to preparing for golden years than just the money side of it.
Yeah, I went to a birthday party recently, and a gentleman there was he's retired. His wife is a doctor, and he was we got into a pretty heated discussion about insurance and medical care, and this person, like a lot of people, believe that everybody can afford insurance. I don't understand when statements are made. It says that we have proof, and the Kaiser Foundation has done a lot of study on this over the years, and they've been able to prove conclusively that a good health care policy for a family of four runs right at $14,000 a year. Mm-hmm. That's what it costs. Now, when you get somebody that works at McDonald's and that's their primary source of income, and they're earning $25,000 or $30,000 a year, how in the world can they afford $14,000 for insurance? And no matter what I could say, I couldn't convince this person that that it wasn't their fault. They couldn't, we seem to believe that everybody can rise above this inability to be able to pay their way. We think that for purposes of use of a credit card, that we go into debt over our heads because we simply want to have a nice car. Or one of the people in the discussion made a comment about, said, well, they have a $27,000 car. I said, it's pretty hard to buy a car cheaper than $27,000. You can get them, but by the time you add all the costs, everything onto it, it's costs. And you see these cars advertised for $109 a month. I think when you go in there, and once you get the cost, it's not $109. The point is that what we say and what we perceive to be the cost of anything is quite often not the real case for the cost. And so it's a misunderstood thing. And, as a person that works in the Department of Children and Families, before the show, you made a comment. I think it's extremely important that people realize that, you told me. You made a comment about the people in Brevard County and the age group in Brevard County, and talked about, since you work in the Department of Children and Families, now the elder part of it, why don't you, without me saying it, you say what you said to me about the importance of people recognizing that Brevard County is an older county and we've got to do more. Do you remember what you were saying?
Yeah, well, my primary job is I'm a protective investigative supervisor. I supervise 6 investigators that go out to investigate abuse, neglect, and exploitation of anyone over the age of 18 that has any kind of infirmity or disability that brings them in under Florida State Statute 415 as a vulnerable adult. We're seeing more and more family members and seniors that, with the way the economy is and with the way the job market is, taking in their adult children their adult grandchildren, who have their great grandchildren with them, and they're spending that money that they had for retirement on taking care of and continuing to take care of their family, even though these are adults now they're taking care of. Because of just the way that we're structured now. Used to be you got a job and you had that job and you worked 40 hours a week and you got a pension and you plan to retire. Well, nobody's doing 40 hours a week anymore because they're not paying you the benefits. So now you have to have 2 or 3 jobs. Well, if you've got to have 2 or 3 jobs, who's going to take care of the kids? So living with your parents, maybe that's your babysitter because you can't spend all your money on after-school care for your children. So it's kind of a cycle that the society that we're creating for ourselves. But in not having the funds and the structure of our county, we don't have a good infrastructure as far as transportation for seniors. For a lot of seniors, my mom included, that to her was like the death, you can't have a license anymore. That's it. I'm just going to die. Because they don't realize there is life after a driver's license.
I agree.
So, and a lot of people rely on that. They think, I lose my independence if I don't have my driver's license. How will I socialize? How will I get my food? Now, there are options. And do you have to make those arrangements and plan for it? Yeah. It's not this spontaneous, I'll get up and get my keys and run do it. You have to make plans for it. But there are ways to live a life and live a good life.
But let me ask you a question. Since you work with the children, you work with seniors, and you see both sides of it, how does Teresa Russell think that, or what would you sort of recommend that, let's start maybe with the county commissioners. There's got to be some entity, some group of people, somewhere in the hierarchy that's got to sort of accept responsibility for making sure that we develop a program that can make sure people's needs are met. Now, I'm not saying take care of them. I'm saying make sure the needs are met. But in order to make sure the needs are met, I think we first have to really identify what the needs really are.
Okay. Well, I'm a sociologist at heart. I also teach sociology at Eastern Florida State College. And that's one of the areas in my class that I teach in. We have to talk about what's the aging process and what do people need for that aging process. When you plan for things, okay, we have to plan for this. We have people who need transportation. We have people who need to be able to access food. We have to say it's one agency's or one commission or one. So it's not one. It's all of us. It's that community's got to do it, and I think it starts with people. I mean, we the people decide who our leaders are by voting. Well, we're seeing a lot less people vote. Some people only vote for the presidential election. Now, that's an important election, but who's going to make sure your roads get paved, and who's going to make sure that the seniors get fed, and who's going to make sure that there's the needs of the people in the community, that there's a red light on your corner if that's a horrible corner? That's your local government. We need to pay as much, if not more, attention to who we have in those offices. So I think making everyone aware and then making everyone responsible. It can't be the responsibility of one group or one person. It has to be everybody's responsibility. Everybody wants to be responsible for children. Everybody needs to be responsible for everybody else in between.
Did you know Dr. Hernandez? Did you know Emma?
I believe we have met, yeah.
Okay. Dr. Hernandez met with me years ago when she first thought about these elder-friendly communities. She called me from Tallahassee and she says, I'm going to be in your area, Joe. Would you have supper with me? And so we could talk about these elder-friendly communities. I said, I'd love to talk to you, Dr. Hernandez. And so we met and we talked. And Dr. Hernandez has some wonderful ideas. But I think where she might have missed the point was that Emma was talking about building a new infrastructure, wide sidewalks, well-lighted streets so seniors could get out and walk at night. We don't have the money to change existing infrastructure. What we needed to do was concentrate how we could take an already developed infrastructure and make it elder-friendly. That's what the thing was. And as I talked to Dr. Hernandez, I said, getting people to understand what the problems are, what some of the real senior needs are, and how we can start channeling some funds into helping people solve the crisis problems themselves are some of the things that we can do to make this an elder-friendly community. And when you start thinking about it, and you mentioned the fact that here in Brevard County, roughly half of the county are senior citizens. So we've already got a problem. And Kerry Fink is sitting over just nodding and listening to us. He's just sort of smiling. Kerry, what is your take on what Teresa and I are talking about?
Well, my drumbeat is that what I think is so important about the conversation we're having is that it has to do with making people aware of the issues seniors face. And one of the things is that when we live in a county where 1 out of 2 people by AARP definition are 50 plus and 1 out of 4 are 65 plus, and I think the statistic, Joe, that you've said over and over is we're the 7th oldest county in Florida, and Florida is a fairly elder state anyway.
It's the second most older senior citizens, yes.
Yeah, and so the thing that's so important about, for example, even what Teresa has been talking about is the fact that I think the key thing, when she was saying, who elects the people that represent us, it's us. That's why the mission that we're trying to do of getting the word out and getting information out about helping seniors is so important, because that's what will make the difference. And I think when you use the word community, getting everybody together with the same agenda about looking after seniors, everybody agrees we got to look after kids. But I think one of the things that was surprising to me, not being an elder expert, was it's been a few years now, but first getting an understanding, because when you hear Department of Children and Family Services, you obviously think kids and young families, but it isn't the first thing that comes up on your radar screen that this has to do with senior citizens as well. And that's why I think this whole conversation today, as we acknowledge World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, is so important, because I don't think this is on people's radar. And I think getting this onto people's radar is part of the discussion that needs to be had. It's once people become aware of a problem, then at least they'll give it the thought and start thinking about ways to address it.
I agree 100%. Teresa?
I think that's one of the things we run into a lot is when we go out to a home and we knock on the door and we say, we're here with Department of Children and Families, and they say, I don't have any kids, and shut the door. Mm-hmm. They don't even know that the Adult Protective Services side of the house exists. And explaining to people, not only do we investigate abuse, neglect, and exploitation, our job is not to prosecute people, but it is to stop it from happening, to help people move forward with it, and to get services into the house. You don't have to have an investigation open to get services through the Department of Children and Families. We have human services counselors that will go out and sit with you and say, okay, these are the programs available in our community. These are the services we can get you. Let's see what you qualify for, and let me help you register for them. We've done everything from, I helped a young lady bury her husband. She was from another country, didn't have the faintest idea what to do on how to handle that, how to pull her finances. Her husband had handled everything. She didn't even know how much money was coming in every month. So helping her just sit down and figure all that out, to helping someone figure out how to get Medicaid, Medicare. I don't have my driver's license, lost my driver's license, lost my birth certificate. How do I get one from another state? To sitting down and helping people do that and just walk them through the process sometimes. That gets them on the path to getting the help they need to be able to be independent and self-able to care for themselves, which is what we're trying to do. That's the mission of the department.
But have you, as a Department of Children and Families, as an entity in itself, have you been able to make any progress in making the services more readily available to the general public at large? I can just remember you made a comment about something. I made a statement. I'll retract it. You're making a comment. Let's talk for a minute about Department of Children and Families having responsibility for children and seniors in a way that it seems to me that part of the mission of the Department of Elder Affairs has sort of been taken over by the Department of Children and Families, and I think that's a hard thing for people to understand. Why is the Department of Children and Families so much involved in abuse of seniors, and the Department of Elder Affairs not involved in it, when it would seem that would be a perfect fit for it to be in the Department of Elder Affairs? Is that a fair question?
Absolutely. At one point, we were actually under the Department of Elder Affairs, and somewhere in the legislature, they felt that moving us into, because we did the investigative side of it, moving us under Department of Children and Families, that's where we went. For a while, there was where we were lumped together with family services. That was children and seniors. Well, they have since, that doesn't work, because the laws and the services for children and the laws and services for adults are two different animals, so they created a separation there. So we have our own silo, if you will, of who we report to and who is working on getting services, getting funding, those kind of things, specifically for seniors, because you can't mix the two. You have people advocating for children, as you need to, but you need people advocating for adults too.
Exactly right. Now, when you get back to, you mentioned Medicaid and Medicare earlier. Does the Department of Children and Families still get involved with the development or movement of people on and off of the waiting list for Medicaid services, or is that strictly in the Department of Elder Affairs now, or do you know?
The Human Services counselors, do some of the home visits to see if somebody qualifies.
Right.
But it's just kind of maintaining that when the person gets pulled from the wait list, Department of Elder Affairs picks it up and then takes it.
I guess what I'm thinking about is that roughly, and if you don't know the answer to this, I'm not going to push it. Roughly 2 months ago, we had roughly 52,000 people on the waiting list for Medicaid services. And then when they started the repeal of the Affordable Health Care Act, when that happened, the number that I keyed in on was they had increased the waiting list numbers to roughly 60-some thousand. Does that ring a bell with you or not?
I know it went up. I don't know the specific numbers.
Well, I guess the point.
Yeah, I know it did go up.
The point is that all these changes we seem to make are acting in opposition to what you're trying to do to make people aware. And we'll talk about that when we come back on the second half of the show, because this is something that people really need to understand. It's not a wired-in set situation. It's fluid. It's flexible. But it's something that people need to know more now, so that wise, intelligent decisions can be made in the future. Stay with us, folks. We're going to come back on the other side of this, about a 2.5-minute break, and we'll get back on it. Got about 6 more questions I do want to ask Teresa. Stay with us.
That's the sound of the 1951 Ford Victoria Hot Rod, fully restored and donated from the private collection of A.J. Hires. It's the 2017 Win the Classic Ford car raffle to support Helping Seniors of Brevard. You have to see this car. I'm Kerry Fink, and I'm inviting you to visit helpingseniors.brevard.org for full information on this exciting car raffle. That's helpingseniors.brevard.org. Stay tuned for more info on the Talk to Me radio network. We're glad that WMEL cares about the space and Treasure Coast.
This is Joe Stegler, folks. I almost missed a signal from Gary to get back on the air. I got so engrossed in talking to Teresa about the We Ad thing tomorrow. I missed Gary winking his finger at me to start talking. Joe shut up on the other side. But you can get excited, folks, about some of the things you do, and I think excitement is a good word to use about trying to promote the cause of seniors. If we don't get excited about something we're doing, what kind of effort are you really going to ever put into it? But before I get too excited, let me remind you that Kay's number over at the office is 321-473-7770. And since it's our sponsors that pay for the few salaries that we do have to pay, And we've got a large number of sponsors. A lot of them include things like Senior Scene Magazine, Hometown News, Al Dia Today, the Spanish paper, the Black paper, Ebony News Today. Florida Day gives us some support. Space Coast Online daily newspaper, the Spotlight Magazine. This radio station, WMEL 1510. All our television shows are aired through the Space Coast government channel. And when you think about it, you think about all the organizations that contribute to what we call in-kind services. That it just means that we don't have to pay. As a nonprofit, we don't have to pay for those services. And if we had to pay for those services, Lord, I don't know how we would be able to do the programs that we do. And when you start talking about overhead costs for nonprofit organizations, remember, folks, that the people that work at nonprofit organizations, that in our case, we have 3 people that are paid. I take no pay. But the woman that does the grants and does all the writing, the bookkeeping, the record keeping, we pay her a small amount. Carrie, as the director, gets paid, but he does the television. He does all the media stuff, the social stuff, and it takes a time to do that. And Kay is our information specialist, and she answers the phone. She puts a newsletter together. These are all big tasks. You just don't. Information just doesn't fall into place out there in the never land someplace. It takes people working together, and the more you can get people excited about doing something, I think the better product you get. Tracy, do you concur?
Absolutely. It's the way you get things done.
Yeah. But let's just go back and focus in on tomorrow. We're at the Melbourne Auditorium. We didn't really. What is the program? What do you envision for tomorrow at the 8th? We had awareness thing that you're going to have here in Melbourne, Florida.
Our focus of the event is to educate people about services. Factors that can help you stay in your home happy, healthy, and if you can't stay in your home, what are your options? And do everything from having those pre-cooked meals. If you're diabetic, then the TV dinners aren't the best option, but there are places you can get those from. There are different insurance companies. Some provide those meals, some don't. Letting people know that. Do you know that having too many throw rugs on your floors is a trip risk? Then you're dealing with trip and fall. Just generally educating people on how to age in place and how to be happy. And that's getting older. Although the natural course of things is you do back out some socially. You're not playing football and baseball and soccer, but maybe you'll take up bocce and shuffleboard, or maybe you'll volunteer to help somebody else start a business that you along the lines of what you used to run, because that social engagement and that mental engagement is what keeps us young and keeps us happy and keeps us healthy.
Okay. I want you and our listeners to take my next few words in the right context. You have spent a lot of time and a lot of effort in developing this event. And you've been working on it now 8 years.
8 years.
Think about what you've done, and what you have is completely just restated is the mission of helping seniors. This is exactly what we do. We do it 365 days a year. The phone gets answered on the weekends. It gets answered at night. My point is that what you're trying to do when we say World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, it's a continuing thing. It's not something that you turn on and off like you turn a water spigot on and off. It's something that we need to do more and more about. One of the most, I think, and you haven't mentioned, I'm surprised you haven't mentioned it, is that when we talk about elder abuse, one of the most often committed forms of elder abuse has to do with family abuse of an elder in a home, and that, along with what we call self-abuse, where seniors fail to do what they can to let somebody else know that they are having a problem. And I think that's a tremendous misservice that we managed to provide. I mean, a lot of it is simply because people don't understand what it is. But what really is important is that the listeners need to understand what you and I and Carrie are talking about, but they also need to know that there is a vehicle for reporting this, and it's better to err on the side of making a report than it is to not make a report. In other words, if you suspect somebody of elder abuse, I think you should call it in and let the Department of Children and Families make the call as to whether it really is abuse of some form and not something you've imagined or have not imagined. Do you agree or not?
I agree, and there's a lot of red flags that you can see. You talked about self-abuse. It's called self-neglect in my world, and it's not necessarily that someone is purposely self-neglecting. A lot of times they don't know where to get help, or they're afraid to ask for help because there's this perception that if DCF comes out to your house, we're going to take you away. That's it. We're going to place you somewhere. Where that is not the purpose of adult services at all. And we work on what's called least restrictive placement. We want to give you the opportunity to remain as independent. We're going to give you some options. Maybe have services come in. Maybe it's Meals on Wheels. Maybe it's getting you hooked up with a transportation service or something else to keep you at your home. If you need the next level, then we talk about the next level. We don't go from you're living independently to driving to here, you need a nursing home now. There's a lot of steps in between there. And if you understand what your needs are and you accept a little bit of help now, like scrubbing the floors or scrubbing that bathtub, that may save you from getting injured and needing that, that next facility.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because when Lyndon Johnson pushed the what the heck was that? In 1965, pushed the law through about seniors. What do we call it? 1965, Social Services, Agency on Aging Act.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes. Well, I was just a baby then.
Okay, but that is so important that people understand that we do have services designed by the government that are paid for by the government, but they're not just to take. They're there to help seniors understand that they can do more to help themselves, take care of themselves so they don't injure themselves, and thereby require increasing costs of care. And I use I've used the terminology elements of care over the year. A lot of people say activities of daily living, but I say, if you get a person in the right element of care, you can address the activities of daily living. But if you don't understand what activities of daily living are, what are different elements of care, and this is what you do through WIAD.
Yes, it's trying to make people aware of that. It's talking about, you talk about somebody who's not getting regular meals, not eating nutritious meals. That affects your health. Well, as you get older, that can affect your mental capacity then. You're being able to do what you... So having that little bit of help and saying, I need this little bit of help will increase all the other facets of your life and allow you to remain independent and happy and healthy longer. Just don't be so stubborn about, I can do it myself. Take that little bit of help. If somebody's going to offer to clean my bathtub, hey, I'll let you clean my bathtub, because that's where you're going to get more injuries and people and slipping and falling, and then you're dealing with those broken bones. As we get older, those don't heal so quickly. So having that little bit of help and recognizing, if you have your spouse, your mom or dad in the house with you, and you're having to bathe them, the chances of you getting injured by trying to bathe them and them getting injured by being slippery or whatever is so much more. So why not have those in-home services come in and help with just giving mom or dad that bath And then you save yourself from getting hurt, and you save them from getting hurt, and you all can live longer independently.
I remember years ago when we first started this first state respite program, years ago, and it was in the late 90s. And I had a couple of women that were worked under the respite program for the state, and we used to pay them a stipend of $5 an hour. And I had these two ladies that went out and took care of this one woman, and her husband was a retired Air Force guy. And they had animals, they had cat hair all over the place. And I know the ladies weren't supposed to do it, but they felt really sorry for the woman because her husband wasn't cleaning the house. And so they did some vacuuming, and then they decided that the woman needed some curtains, so they made some curtains for her. And then they came in to see me one day. I said, "How's it going?" They said, "Joe, we have a little problem." I said, "What's the problem now?" And they said, "Well, so-and-so wants us to clean the garage." And we told him we draw the line at that. We'll take care of his wife. We'll do all these things. We're not cleaning his garage for him. So, you know, you can have all these programs, but you have to watch out for people that really try to take advantage of the system. And that's something that I think the Department of Children Affairs does. You do a good job of trying to make sure that somebody is not taking advantage of the system. And there are too many people think that once you start these programs, they're all entitlement programs and that people are going to walk all over it. And that's not true. It's not true.
Yeah, no, it's not. And dealing with laughing about the girls were doing that. We used to call them work weekends when all the investigators, it's not part of our job to go out and clean somebody's house or to do, but we have somebody who, let's say, is going to get evicted. If their house doesn't get clean, it doesn't get cleaned up. And we'd all go out on the weekend and show up for a pizza party at somebody's house and clean their house for them while we were to make sure, because you have to have a heart for what you do.
It takes heart to work in these types of programs. It's not something that just anybody can do, Teresa. It takes somebody that is a caring, loving person that's willing to give of themselves an awful lot in order to help others. Carrie, listening again, I trying to figure out how I get you to talk more. But no, I'm serious. I'm just joking. But you heard me ask Teresa about the WEAD conference tomorrow. What are some of the other highlights that you envision happening over at WEAD tomorrow? We give people a reason for coming out.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this event because everything we've been talking about is the importance of getting information in the hands of people. And sometimes, there's that saying that for lack of one piece of information, people perish. And a lot of times it's getting that one right thing. So tomorrow, it's happening from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's at the Melbourne Auditorium. So it's right down there, right off of US 1. I actually was talking to somebody who wasn't sure where the Melbourne Auditorium was because they were new to the area. So it's just right off of US 1 by Holmes Regional Medical Center. And it's a great opportunity. Everything is free. The parking is free. Admission is free. There's free breakfast. I'm doing your job here, but free lunch. There's even an ice cream social. And we, from the Helping Senior side, are really so excited because you've been kind enough to let us bring, for our very first public appearance, the beautiful 1951 classic Ford Victoria that was generously donated by A.J. Hires to allow us to have a way that we can fund the work. Because like we were talking about before, Teresa, this isn't something that somebody gave you a budget and said, do this. You actually started from the ground up. You saw this was an important thing to do, and you're taking your time and energy and pulling people together to do this. And that's why when people show up for this, they're going to get a sense for how important that the level of work that you guys are doing. And we're excited about it because it's another opportunity for us to interact with the public. We're going to talk about the car. We are going to actually, our friend Gary Allen from WMEL Radio right here is going to be on site broadcasting live. I think A.J. Hires is supposed to pop by with the key, and officially we'll have a press moment where you can get your photo made with the key. It's just going to be a fun day. So everybody should come out. And I don't know if there's anything that I've left for you to add to that, but what do you have to say, Teresa, about that?
No, we're just hoping everybody will come by and get some information and join in the fun. That's part of it is make it a fun event. It's not a senior health fair. It's not just a senior expo. This is information for families.
Okay. Do you know if we're going to have rum raisin ice cream?
I'm not sure what they're bringing. I hear they're
Boy, oh
bringing in
boy,
an ice cream truck with a couple different flavors.
Wow.
And some toppings. You're
And if
just
they
gonna
don't-
make your
I'll have to find
own.
out if they,
And if they don't have it, Admiral, are you not going to show up then?
no, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be. Well, like I tell a lot of people, I really like ice cream. There's only one kind of ice cream I'm not really particularly fond of, and that's that peppermint stick candy ice cream they have at Christmas time. But if it's all they have, I'll eat that too. But no, I'm not a fond of peppermint stick ice cream. But
You'll be there regardless.
I'll be there regardless.
All right, okay.
And that voice you're hearing is the voice of Gary Allen, who will be broadcasting live tomorrow.
And I'm only showing up because the Admiral's there and he needs his aid, and I'm that it.
Folks, we have a good time doing the show here at the radio station. We have a good time doing the television shows. We always hope that you'll have a good time by coming to these events and maybe meeting somebody that will help steer you in a different direction that you might be headed to do a better job of aging. I don't know, is Barbara McIntyre going to be there from... Do you know if she's going to be there for home equity loan?
I don't know. I know a lot of our the people who are connected to helping seniors are going to be there. I know Rob Dixon from Knowledge College for Aging is going to be one of the people. I forgot to mention, and shame on me, Kay Kaiser, our own information specialist, is going to be on site. So we're calling it a chance for you to talk to Kay and meet her. And she's helped, as you know, the senior information hotline that Helping Seniors operates. We've helped over, I think, 1,900 people.
1,700 or 1,800 people. Yeah, that's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. And all that's done, as a free service. Talking about labor of love. That's what it is. We couldn't do it if we didn't have people who help us support, like through the car raffle or the businesses that come alongside and help us. We need that support. It's the only way we can do what we do.
Well, I found, since I'm one of the senior citizens, I increasingly see the challenges placed before me as I try to get older and just walk. We don't often think about some of the things that we take for granted. And Teresa made a comment earlier in the show about one of the things you might see as a way to improve your lifestyle at the show tomorrow is that the fact that a lot of times we have clutter in our house that is extremely dangerous, and we have grown up with it and we don't think about it, but it's very easy to trip over a rug. It's easy to do something that can seriously damage ourselves. I think one of the most the damaging things that I've seen through the year is the failure of people to use a cane, and I have seen a greater reluctance among women than I have among men to use a cane. There is absolutely nothing wrong with using a cane. In fact. I think it's one of the smartest things I've done is to use the cane and to use my rollator. I get a lot of young, pretty girls that open the door for me. They're just, you have to look at all the things that you do. And you'd be surprised, folks, if you identify yourself as needing a little bit of assistance, it helps other people that see you understand that maybe they do need to hold the door open for you, or maybe they do need to let you go ahead of them. People are not so turned off by a problem as you might think they are. People want to help, but in order to help, they need to know. It's just like if people don't know about the many wonderful services here in Brevard County that you're going to highlight at WEAD tomorrow. They don't know. They don't know to ask about them.
I'm laughing about your cane story because we deal Brevard down in Barefoot Bay. We have a large community of seniors, and it's. The girls down there would say it's not a good fashion statement. So at one time we got a group of them to start a parasol club where it was a long umbrella and they were decorating them. So it became a fashion statement, and they were using them as canes, or when it was too hot, they were holding them over their heads. But that's how we got them to recognize if you're going to fall, make it a controlled fall. And having a cane or having something else to assist you in going down slowly instead of face first is important as we get older.
Yeah.
So
One
that's how
thing
they
we
did
have
it.
not given out today, we got to come. Do you have the number for elder abuse? Do you have it handy?
To call the abuse hotline, it's 1-800-96-ABUSE. It's the
Say it
same
again.
for children's, 1-800-96-ABUSE. And that's the Florida Abuse Hotline.
And you don't have to identify yourself. You don't have to tell people who you are if you don't want to do it. What's important, folks, is for those that think we see child or senior abuse is to report it and let the correct authorities make a determination as to whether or not it is abuse.
Absolutely. And more than just that, when we go out, we're not going out to punish someone. We're going out with the concept of helping someone. So even if we get out there and there's no abuse, neglect, or exploitation going on, there may be some services that we can refer to that person to make their life better. So we try to make it a positive event
Okay.
when we go out.
We got just a few seconds. Teresa, what else might you want to say to our listeners about tomorrow or anything else in your job at the Department of Children and Families?
Well, this is the year of seniors living out loud. So seniors, we want to hear from you.
That's a good statement. One thing I didn't realize was that the WEAD was started by the UN.
Yeah.
Okay, we're out of time, folks. I want to thank Teresa Russell from the Department of Children and Families for being here today. And she's also the promoter for the WEAD conference tomorrow over at the Melbourne Auditorium, and Carrie Fink, Director for Helping Seniors. We'll see you tomorrow. And please tell others about the show over at the Melbourne Auditorium. We'll see you there. Bye-bye.